As Naruto fans, we all know that the power of a tailed beast, it is enormous, to a point where the tailed beasts and the Jinchuuriki they are sealed inside of are rightfully considered to be military assets. But as we all know, following the end of the Fourth Great Ninja War, the era of Jinchuuriki appeared as if it was finally over as we knew it, with all the tailed beasts going out into the wild. The remaining half of the Nine Tails, it went back inside of Naruto, and Killer B continued to live his best life, writing his debut album, Life and Times of a Jinchuuriki Volume 1. However, this was not actually the last time we would see some aspect of the Jinchuuriki system at work. In fact, no sooner than Naruto and Sasuke had broken the infinite Tsukiyomi and the world seemingly was headed towards peace, there were still people lining up and coming up with ideas on how to use the power of a tailed beast to recreate the glory of the old days where the five nations were at war and there was a war economy. And one of the people who was unfortunate enough to be on the receiving end of this was Sai, who would find himself nearly getting killed in the process. Join me in today's newest edition of After Naruto Shippuden over here on the Naruto Explained channel, where we discuss how Sai's first encounter with one of these Jinchuuriki almost resulted in him getting killed. For those of you guys who are new, After Naruto Shippuden is a series over here on the channel where we take a look at scenes and stories that occur between Naruto chapter 699 and chapter 700, many of which were never adapt into the anime, like the story for today's video. And the ones that were fortunate enough to get anime adaptations, they were either done out of order or they made serious changes to them in order to fit the anime timeline. Therefore, it's not even the same story at all. Hence, we call this series After Naruto Shippuden. So the information for today's video will be coming to us via the Naruto epilogue story, Sakura Hiden Love Riding the Spring Breeze, which is set many months after the events of Naruto the Last. And at this point in the timeline, Naruto and Hinata, they're already engaged. And Naruto is teaching classes at the academy when he's not out on high-profile missions. And Sai is continuing a mission that he has already been given by Kakashi, which is rounding up deserters from the Fourth Great Ninja War. It's in the scene that we're going to be going over today, where Sai has been continuing that long-term aforementioned mission where Kakashi gave Sai and Naruto, after Kakashi became 6th Hokage, to seek out shinobi who deserted the battlefield after Kage was defeated, taking advantage of all the mass thousands of lives that were killed during the war in order to go into hiding. Some of them coming to the conclusion that Madara was right and that the shinobi system needed to be overhauled by any means necessary, even if it meant killing innocent people. After almost 2.5 years later, Sai has gone from being in the land of silence, investigating people like Gingo, to now moving closer within the borders of the land of fire, just outside of Konoha specifically, this time looking for Mist Village shinobi, rogue ninjas who are part of a group that called themselves the Deceased, who were operating inside of the land of fire, so well away from the hidden Mist Village. Sai had been tracking down this group by taking a page out of Jiraiya's book, using spies, and having a network of informants in order to track down leads. And he's using his ink jutsu to pass messages with them. But this time, it has a more pressing matter at hand, because one of the elders who advised Tsunade, Hamura, has been attacked, and the feudal lord of the land of fire was almost successfully assassinated. So not the feudal lord we have in Boruto, but instead his father, the one that you saw that made Danzo the 6th Hokage. This is what brought Sai deeper into the land of fire, closer towards the village, in order to track down any leads specifically. However, instead of cluing in Naruto or even the Anbu directly underneath Sai's command, Sai works directly under Kakashi, taking it upon himself to look into the situation, reading all the reports of activity in the area and around the land of fire itself, and using every aspect of his spy network, coming to the conclusion that it was a group of 3 who carried out the attack. But what grabbed his attention was that they had been cloaked in chakra, that the way it was reported in the report, it was described as being eerily similar to the chakra of a bijuu that a Jinchuuriki would produce when using the bijuu chakra. It would be as Sai would begin to close in on these shinobi that Sai believed were rogue ninjas from the hidden Mist Village that he would get attacked and find himself face to face with a Jinchuuriki using the power of a bijuu. With the scene and the much needed context being set is here, I'm going to begin reading the selected scenes from the story, and for those you guys who want to read it for yourself and also support the channel while doing so, I'll leave the affiliate link in the description box down below for you to check out the story if you choose to do so. And it's here I'm going to begin quoting the selected passages. So, a shuriken flew at him from behind. He knocked it to one side and whirled around to see how many people he was up against. 2 people 20 meters or so away in black masks, likely the ones he was looking for. He didn't know if there were others still concealing themselves. Then the follow-up attack started. One threw a kunai, the other moved at the same time, a kunai held in an underhand grip. Clearly, he planned to attack Sai when his guard was down after dodging the flying kunai. Their coordination, it was impeccable. Sai dodged the kunai and leapt backwards to avoid the attack of the other man pressing in on him. As he flew, he pulled out his scroll and his brush. 2 tigers outlined in his black ink drew to life and charged towards his enemies. That's probably the end of that, Sai thought, but his hope, it was betrayed instantly. A kunai pierced the forehead of the attacking tiger, turning it into a spray of black ink, while the target of the other tiger evaded the beast's jaws, leapt onto his back and plunged a kunai into his throat. Sai gasped. They were stronger than he thought. The enemies, they came at him again with no regard for defense. One launched a kunai and shuriken while Sai dodged these. The other jumped him. It was a simple combination attack, but Sai, he couldn't find room to counter the attacks, and so he threw a smoke bomb at the ground and hurriedly stepped outside the smoke and started drawing new pictures on a scroll. The first tigers Sai had sent, they rushed towards the enemy, but these tigers, they were smaller, and so he increased their numbers to 6 instead of 2. Some ran with their heads low, and some jumped into the air. The movements, they clearly confused his enemies. Sai charged the enemy closest to him with a kunai, but in an instant it happened. His enemy's chakra, it visibly doubled, swelling up like a sudden flame that enveloped his body like a robe of chakra. The chakra explosion turned his tigers into ink instantaneously. Sai's eyes, they flew open. These weren't 2 fairly decent shinobi. They were easily jonin class as it was. But what surprised him was the sudden burst of chakra and the chakra robes now blanketing their bodies, and the tail that he saw. A light purple chakra cloak had grown a tail about 30 meters long, but that was as much observing as he was able to do. The ninja suddenly closed the distance on Sai. Before he even had a chance to blink, he was tangled up in taijutsu, exchanging punches and kicks and kunai with both of his enemies. One kicked his legs out and Sai stumbled to the ground. The other was on top of him immediately, plunging his kunai downward. The tip, it pierced Sai's chest, and suddenly he turned into ink. Having used one of his ink clones as a pawn, the real Sai, he appeared and began to attack. He landed a solid kick on the back of the enemy that sent him flying, tumbling to the ground several feet away, but then he pulled himself to the ground and leapt backward and started to run away. The chakra increase, it definitely increased his speed. Sai's eyes flew over to his other opponent. He managed to defeat 2 of his ink beasts, but the remaining 2 had pinned him on the ground. The chakra robe, it had vanished. Belly to the earth, the man turned his face to the side and he groaned. The eyes that Sai saw, they contained fear. "Who are you?" Sai asked, but the man, he didn't answer. His entire body suddenly convulsed so strong that it almost broke free of the tigers. His breathing was shallow and growing distant. Sai reached out to touch the nape of the man's neck, but then noticed the lettering that suddenly spread across it. Sai leapt backwards as the man's body exploded. Blood, flesh, and bone, they were scattering everywhere. End quote. Now, for more context, obviously, one of the shinobi that Sai battled, he managed to escape, using speed that Sai had not accounted for. But the other one, upon falling to defeat, he was brutally killed off. The fear in his eyes, it came from knowing what was about to happen. And Sai, he was almost caught in the explosion as a result. It's very similar to what Danzo did with Root Ninja, placing seals on their tongues to prevent them from talking about Danzo and the root Anbu inner workings. However, this is more gruesome. So as to avoid anyone talking, those defeated, as you see in the story, are destroyed via a seal that blows up their entire body down to the point of just scattered bones for obvious reasons. As we learn in early Naruto, the body of a shinobi, if examined, it contains many secrets, and the body of a shinobi is no different here. In this scenario, someone like Sakura Tsunade gets their hands on this body and they figure out immediately what's going on. Sai just fought two people with a chakra cloak that had a tail's worth the chakra of a Jinchuuriki. But as you see, the drawback is that this power, it fades away very quickly. That's because the chakra itself isn't from a tailed beast that is sealed inside of a person like a normal Jinchuuriki. That would raise too much suspicion if suddenly these tailed beasts that are supposed to be running around free and only Naruto and Killer Bee have tailed beasts sealed inside of them. Only Naruto has a small part of the chakra, the 9 bijuu. Naruto would know right away if one of them was sealed away because his link to them would be severed. Instead, what we're seeing here are that there are some of the dangers being explored with science expanding in the shinobi world. Now that Kakashi has become Hokage and he's begun rediverting the resources away from the military budget to help citizens with hospitals as well as scientific expansion and research. Basically, Kakashi right now in this era, he's laying the groundwork for what you eventually see in the Boruto era. However, this wasn't something sanctioned by Kakashi for obvious reasons. Kakashi's doing stuff like trying to do research with Hashirama cells to fix Might Guy's leg. He's not signing off on things like this. This was more so bad faith actors who were loyal to Danzo. Yes, even in this blank period era, Danzo's still a problem. These people, they went to the final valley to scrape up DNA of Naruto and Sasuke, and immediately after the Infinite Tsukuyomi was broken, and they began experimenting on their DNA for the purposes of making drugs to sell on the black market. After all, if you could make money with Hashirama cells, and you could gain power with Hashirama cells, what could you do with Naruto and Sasuke cells? And in this era now, because of how many people deserted after the 4th Ninja War, there were more rogue ninjas on the market than ever before. You had a lot of Madara sympathizers during this time. What better way to make money than to take DNA from Naruto and sell someone the power of a tailed beast, even if it's a fragment of the power, from a guy whose body contained chakra of all 9 bijuu at the time? What better way to make money than to take the DNA from a guy who had the Sharingan and the Rinnegan and try to sell the power of the Sharingan, both the bijuu chakra and the Sharingan power, two offsetting powers, contained in the forms of pills, but watered down versions of the real thing. Though with Naruto's chakra, they've gotten dangerously close to pulling out large quantities of chakra, as we'll see later on in this story. But the version that Sai just ran into is just troublesome enough for smaller countries that are not in the alliance to make trouble and for rogue ninjas to stir up conflict. These shinobi were already jonin class as they were. Just a small boost of chakra was enough for them to easily overwhelm Sai. The people behind this, they planned to do what the Akatsuki said that they were going to do in volumes 35 or 36 of Naruto's manga, which was control the war economy, because they disagree with Kakashi leading the other Kage of the 5 nations and the few smaller nations that did join the Shinobi Alliance after the war, where they all agreed to reduce the military budgets of all the villages in order to maintain peace. Basically, the Naruto world has a military industrial complex still going on. Had Sai acted a moment too slow, Inojin never would have been born, which to learn more about how stories like this and others happen after Naruto Shippuden ended, you want to click here for the After Naruto Shippuden playlist on the left, or you want to click here on the right for this new video from my Anime Explained channel, where I discuss non-Naruto content in the form of video essays, lore videos, explain videos, chapter reviews, and so much more.